Hey, hey, hey. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad y'all here. I just finished 5 weeks of being a participant in the ProX internship program. And if you're not familiar, ProX is a program here in Kansas City where a nonprofit actually pays for you to have an intern, but a high school intern of your choosing that you give some projects or a problem to solve and they solve it. And I had two interns this summer, and one of their major projects was in response to the 1971 Quality of Urban Life report here in Kansas City that basically showed that as it relates to education and justice and freedom and access, everything that they said over 50 years ago today is still, over 50 years ago today is still true. And so I gave the students the Quality of Urban Life report. They got to read it. I shared with them the concept of learned helplessness, which is basically this idea that if you keep running into obstacles, eventually you'll start to think that you can't succeed, that you can't get beyond them. And even when I told the interns that story, the first thing that they thought as a possible solution was to focus on the people who have learned helplessness and how we can break them out of it. And so I went with that because, again, the goal of this project is that the students are solving a problem. And so I try not to argue with reality because when you do, you'll lose, but only 100% of the time. So if the first thought people have when they consider people who suffer from learned helplessness is the behavior of the people and not the systems that persistently put the challenges in front of them, I asked my interns, I said, well, what if the people are the people in power? And they just kind of looked at me. And I said, what if the people with the power to change the systems are the ones who suffer from learned helplessness? That they are the ones who have run into things so many times that they believe that nothing can be done. Because let me tell you, I had an opportunity to talk to some of the wealthiest people in this country a few weeks ago, and I said to them that one of the people in their group could eradicate homelessness in Kansas City because of just the sheer wealth that they have. Yesterday, we had an opportunity to go walk around in the Kaufman beautiful garden. If you haven't been there, I recommend you go because in this memorial garden, you have Mr. Kaufman and his wife kind of buried next to each other in what is looks like 4 square blocks of space with beautiful shrubbery, beautiful um, pergolas and concrete edifices and fountains and statues, all the things. It is a very relaxing place. And then contrast that with sometimes people so poor that when they die, the state has to throw them in a pine box to bury them. If they have family, folk having GoFundMe's and fish fries and fried chicken dinners to try to figure out how to scrape up a couple $1,000s for the ceremony. And in those instances, I always notice that a decent number of social media posts will go up and say, well, if you didn't have life insurance, then don't come to me to help you with your GoFundMe and your fish fry because we so used to looking at the behavior of the people. But what if instead of creating this mausoleum of sorts that I think is beautiful, okay? And listen, I intend to go back and walk through the space. They got some serious security over there, and I don't know if I like that, but otherwise, beautiful, serene, wonderful space. Everything I've ever read about Mr. Kaufman was the antithesis of that, though. He was one of those people who did not let limiting beliefs keep him from trying to eradicate poverty. And he knew that reparations was necessary. He knew that access and opportunity were necessary. He knew that if you had a life of poverty, that you could probably not get out of it by working for someone else, that you mostly would have to start your own business in order to break that cycle. And so my interns, I pushed them and said, listen, this is an aggressive timeline, but I talk too complicated. The way I speak is too complicated. It always has been. I need y'all to write me a fable about the story of learned helplessness through fleas and tell it at a fourth grade level. In fact, maybe even think about telling it that a parent could read it to their 5-year-old kid. And they came up with a wonderful little story. It is so fun. And then at the end of the book, I want you to use kind of the model that Patrick Lencioni did in his 10 New York Times bestsellers. And then write to the adults or business leaders about what power they actually have to really move the needle. Um, my interns presented their project yesterday, and the judges were blown away. I'm going to need your help because if they make it to the top 7, which I think they will, out of the thousands of interns that are in the program, the part of the way they decide who wins the ultimate prize is by social media votes. So I will post early and often about if they make it. I'll post early and often about their book, and I'll show you. It's called "Breaking Jars: The Story of Learned Helplessness and Fleas," and just vote for them as much as you can so that they can get to the top. But this brings me to my topic for today, which is what happens in the fourth quarter. Because in these 5 weeks, these girls have put together an amazing project. They also documented their time with me on TikTok, simplifying concepts for me so that I could uh, get some of these more academic ideas out and accessible to more people more often. And in the fourth quarter in football, I never really paid attention to the fact that there are more flags thrown in the fourth quarter. The rules matter more in the fourth quarter. The differentiators matter more when you get to the end of the game. And one of the things that I was really shocked by was that when it was time to present, my interns showed up wearing like business casual and then like casual athletic gear to their presentation. And I was like, oh my God, where did I go wrong here? Because all of the other interns were in business suits. And so I asked them, I'm like, did the Pro X people tell y'all to wear business suits? Was this business professional attire? And they were like, yeah. Now, in the 4 weeks that we've been together, y'all see how I be on this filter free Friday. Like I still got on my workout top. I just throw a little scarf on. If I can't see, I put my little glasses on, but they dirty today and I can't find my wipes. So I just go without viewing. Like I dress appropriately for the occasion. And this is filter free Friday. This is me and God. We work this thing out. This is what it is. But when asked, like, okay, well, why you just like that? They're like, well, this is who I am. This what this is this is me. And let me just be very, very clear. Dress codes are woefully, woefully inequitable and riddled with bias. And and when I wear glasses, people think I'm smarter. When my hair is braided, people think something about that. When I have on a black suit, people think a thing versus when I have on maybe a hot pink one. You use people's biases against them when you can, right? I know I told y'all the story about this lawsuit that I'm pretty sure I partially won because of how my opponent was dressed. Like, I show up, I got on my little navy suit, I got my pearls, my little pumps, glasses on. She come here with a tight summer dress on, hair wet, pulled up, dirty wedges. Like, the judge is making some determinations. People make determinations based on what you look like. Should they? No, but they do. And so here we are in the fourth quarter, and I'm like, my interns ain't dressed the part. Like, what the heck here? What in the world? So I'm freaking out a little bit, but I'm like, look, just like in every other situation, Sometimes you got to overcome what you're looking at in order to appreciate the food. I mean, I don't know if any of y'all like the diners, drive-ins, and dives, and you like go to these places to eat and they just look terrible, but the food is amazing. And so the misspellings all on the side of the food truck. The menu is dirty, all the things, but the food's so good that you eat there anyway. I mean, some of y'all a little too bougie to do that, but for me, it's like, hey, if the food is good, the service is good, you might have me there. So I'm like, their product is so good that perhaps we should just let's just push through. I think I was right. Everyone who saw their book was like, y'all wrote a book in 4 weeks. This is amazing. And they sold several books off of Amazon while they were there. They autographed a few books that they had for some people while they were there. Their presentation was fantastic. But it takes me back to, how do we behave in the fourth quarter? And what does it look like when we talk about these sacred things that people really have strong beliefs about? Because I will go back to this idea of Mr. Kaufman. Can I bring that up? The incessant wealth, the differences between people who can be buried in bronze, statuesque kind of things in the middle of built beautiful gardens. And then there's people who don't have enough to be buried at all. And the fact that we just like, what were the decisions you made? And what if, when you look at the course of our week this week, you start to see that there are people who are playing by the rules in the fourth quarter, and then there are people who were like, that ain't no rule, so I ain't gonna follow it. You see, in what world would you benefit from a program, say it's the best thing ever, when you have this job as the chair of the EEOC or director, whatever, and then when it's time for you, when you cannot be fired, when you are in one of the highest positions of the land, you say, we don't need that anymore. It's a type of, it's a something that is going on that is saying, I don't know if we can fix the world's problems, and I don't care about the world's problems anymore. And the interns have to present this Thursday if they get into the top 7. And I'm struggling, right? Because they've done such good work in the first 4 quarters. But I know that the people in power have a limiting belief that there's certain things that you wear when you are professional and deserve the Pro X ultimate prize. And so do we, for me, I know I'm going to put the suit on. And if I got to just throw a little flair in with some pink pumps or some earrings or some hair or whatever I got to do, it is the differentiator in you deciding that you're going to give me this money or not give me this money is not going to be because what I wore. Rightfully or wrongfully, right? Like, once you get to the position where you own a Pro X or you are running a Pro X and you can decide what the dress code is, in that moment, are you going to, because here's what I've noticed. Many times when we get to the power position, we uphold these systems instead of break them down. When we have the opportunity to decide, okay, what is the dress code going to be for this thing? What do we think business professional looks like? In those moments, we keep the same rules. When, if you adjust in the short time, you're like, okay, I'm gonna put this suit on because I know I need to put this suit on because the people who gonna be judging need to see a suit. Do you remember that when you get to power? Because when I look at Justice Clarence Thomas, that's not what happened. When I look at Justice John Roberts, that's not what happened. When I look at Justice Amy Coney Barrett, that is not what happened. It's like every single thing that they did to adjust, when they got into position of power, they were like, y'all just, no. And can you win a fight when some people think that the rules are one thing and other people think the rules are another thing? I was at the Kansas City Independence Day celebration at the um, at the Liberty Memorial. Sorry. And interestingly enough, the rules are don't put flags on your clothes. That's the rules. But the people who swear that they just love this country and this flag so much, not only do they have flags on their clothes, they have flags that are turned the wrong way, flags inside out. They've got flags that they've adjusted the colors to put thin blue lines between. All they've ripped, they've got flags where the edges are ripped. And we're celebrating independence, which for my own personal birthday, listen, I celebrate it's my birthday month. I celebrate my birthday because I'm grateful that I have gotten another year older. But also the older I have gotten, I have looked over my life and gone, I'm not quite at the fourth quarter yet, but I'm getting there. And as I'm getting there, when I evaluate the decisions I've made, am I happy with them? And some things I'm happy with, and some things I'm not happy with. And for those things I'm not happy with, I got to be honest with myself so that when I get to the fourth quarter and I get out of here, that I can say I had a life well lived. That's me. And so for me, wouldn't it be true that for my country that I could say, hey, happy birthday? And there are some things when I look over the course of your life, there are some good things, and then there's some things we got to rectify. We got to fix it. And so when people say, I'm proud of my country, proud means satisfied. Satisfied. And what's interesting is that when people want to complain about taxes, they want to complain about size of government, they want to complain about affirmative action, they want to complain about abortion, they want to complain about um, let me think about some other conservative idea. You want to complain about any number of things. Nobody ever says when when the complaints about our country are on the right side of things. If you don't like it, leave. One time I had made the horrible mistake of moving in with someone, and every time something didn't go his way, he would manage to, in the nicest way possible, say, if you don't like it, leave. You know what if you don't like it, leave means? If you don't like it, leave means this is mine and you can get out. Nobody says if you don't like it, leave. If they believe that the place we are belongs to all of us, you can't tell me to leave something that belongs to me. And so think about the mentality of a person who says to you, when you're criticizing the country for some left-leaning ideas, and they say to you, if you don't like it, leave. What they are saying to you, this is my house, you get out. And what kind of egotistical position is that when you were not native here, when you killed 52 million, so many Native American people were killed because of colonization, that you can actually see a dip in the world's ozone impact at that time in history. That's how many people left the planet. If you don't like it, leave. If you have ever told somebody if you don't like this country, leave, baby, do me a favor. It's the fourth quarter. This is a move the ball tactic. Stop saying that. Don't say that to people. You don't own the United States of America as a singular person. Me and my friend and her daughter and the interns were enjoying the Ewing Kauffman Memorial Garden yesterday. And we were standing there reading the inscription on the caskets. And three white people walked up, and one of them was a tour guide of sorts. I didn't realize that there was a formal tour of the area. And you could just feel that they expected us to move out the way. I'm not surprised. I'm just disappointed. And so the project that I had these interns working on was to stop looking at marginalized groups. Stop looking at people who have been historically left out and left behind and saying, what's wrong with y'all? Because when I think about the United States of America, who has more incarcerated citizens than any other country in the world, and that has been, and that the number of people we put in jail has been going up and up and up and up and up since 3 years before I was born. 50 years this has been happening. Not because we are more criminal, but because people in power want more money. Think about who gets rich when you got people stuck in jail cells. And when you have judges in my hometown saying things like, oh, well, you know, who do you think is in prisons and who is in jails? Do you think it's people who have just committed one crime? Well, this idea of mandatory minimums and sentences and all that, we had all but eradicated those ideas. And we just did not have, we only had a few 100,000 people in prison. Because I'm not going to say that people shouldn't be in prison at all. But to the hundreds of millions of people we have in prison, and then we're celebrating freedom at the same time, it's a level of hypocrisy that just, you just go, what? It's almost as if the ref is telling you, look here, you a first down is 15 yards for you. And you're like, but it's 10 yards for them. Nope, 15 yards for you. Now, if the ref decide that, you got to figure out how every 15 yards going to be your first down. That's what you got to figure out if that's what the refs are doing. And so I just am kicking myself today. If they don't make, I believe they're going to make it to the top 7 because of their project, but if they don't, it will be because of dress. And I wonder sometimes, where's the line? Do we buy into these systems of oppression, or do we push against them knowing we ain't gonna win? Because the differentiator is the people who will play the game by the rules that have been set out, because you know you can't get disqualified because of the rule. Don't let the rule be why you get disqualified, at least. And what do I say to them if they make it to the top 7, and what should they wear on Thursday? Do you wear a cheerleading skirt? Do you wear linen pants? Or do you put on black, gray, navy suit so you can win the ultimate prize? And I think sometimes that's what we're up against. Because when I look at the most hateful legislation that is the most divisive that gets passed, it has been done by the people who understand, let me just move the ball. In 1974, let me put this law in place. In 1975, let me use this president to say we got a war on drugs. In 1976, let's do this. In 1980, let's do this. And then let's do mandatory minimums. Let's, just moving the ball, moving the ball, moving the ball. But in the fourth quarter, when it matters the most, when the refs are calling the most fouls, when they keenly looking, my question is, are we making decisions that are causing more division, more distraction, more destruction? Or are we subordinating our own agenda so that we can just move for the good of the whole? We had a prayer vigil last week, this last point. Prayer vigil last week to address crime in the city. And I was standing there biting my tongue till it bled, because I pray about everything. I believe in the power of prayer. And yet, if I'm not meeting my objectives, are you going to come tell me to pray? Some of us, our job is addressing the social determinants of violence. Some of us, our job is to make sure that people have access to food, that people have access to housing, that people have access to transportation, that people have access to mental health um, services. Pray. And I know how that sounds. And that's why I'm bringing up the fourth quarter, because here I am on this call. I have I, the primary rule of a soft revolution is not to attack the sacred relics. And I have talked about Ewing Kaufman, safe relic. I have talked about the flag, safe relic. I've talked about our ideas around business professionals, safe relic. I've talked about our ideas around criminality, and now I'm going to even bring up prayer. Every Friday, I run the risk of being ostracized and put aside because none of this stuff sells. What sells is telling people that the way this system works, especially if it's working for them, is exactly right. That's honestly why I think the likes of the Candace Owens and the Clarence Thomases are purposeful. There is money to be made in saying that Black people should be on the bottom of things. And meanwhile, what are we talking about? Kiki Palmer's outfit. I My son used to play lots of sports, and whenever sometimes we would be in certain communities, clearly they'd get what I called a ref job. But what he learned and what I learned observing was that the winners, the people who get us closer to the ideals for which we say are worth standing up for, those are the people who are so much better that the ref can't call the game. See, that's what it is. And when we consider what it takes to be able to create a more perfect union, it's going to require that we find wider bridges for people to get on, not narrower ones. That we stick to our ideas around what isn't acceptable in a free society. When you look at, what is it, 2.5 million people in local jails, state and federal prisons, and on probation and parole. Actually, when you look at, what is it, 7 million people on probation and parole, 2 point, I mean, just this is just awful. And when we become numb to it, the psychic numbing that occurs, I'm not sure that we can fix it. And when we get to the point where we are the ones outside of the glass jar with the lid on it, you've heard me tell the fleece story many times. Are we going to try to crack it, break it open? Or are we going to say, I got mine, you get yours? In a purely capitalistic society, in the way that we think about it, when there's no limit to how much money we are willing to make, it is my belief that that level of greed is going to always keep us from creating the type of world we want to see. And so I just ask you, sugars, what is our differentiator? Because I know in my space, the people who are just like, I ain't buying into these systems. I'm not doing it. They're the same people who are like, I ain't gonna do nothing many times too. Are you in the arena or not? And I'm not one of those people that's like, you should just be working tirelessly, never getting any rest. I get 8 hours sleep every night, yeah. But what I do question and question often is if we adjust to win the game in the short term, do we remember that it was an adjustment by the time we get to the end of the game? And what is our responsibility? What is our responsibility to hold people in power responsible for their jobs, to do what they said they were going to do? It should be a disqualifier if you lie in your hearings to get your seat and then you change your position and you can't explain that change. Because I'm a scientist. As we get new information, we change. Pluto not a planet no more. We know that. And so why would we keep saying? But when you have a character issue because you outright lied, it should be a disqualifier. You should be unseated. And because of money, we have figured out how to go, oh, it's okay. Let me bend and twist and turn. Um, I said I was on my last point, I lied. One of my friends was applying for a role, and it was a role for which she is not in the dominant community. And not once, not twice, not 3 times, but at least half a dozen times, somebody said to her, "How you gonna handle it when people don't treat you basically when people don't think you should be here because 'cause you're not part of this community?" Listen, that's a discriminatory, bigoted idea. Don't ask me how I'm gonna shift and twist and bend. You change the culture. Change the culture. And an empathetic point of view is to say, what would I want to happen if it were me? And you don't want nobody coming to you saying, you're not one of us, so I don't think you should be here. And because I'm giving you money, go ahead and tap a dance, please. Man, stop it. And we have got to really lean into what we believe so that when we get to the fourth quarter, we got the energy, passion, and commitment to keep going. Sometimes I don't think we even know what we believe. Because there's no situation in which, if you truly believe in freedom, this is what we'd be looking at. And the thing that I have to work through is if I think personal expression and who you are and who you inherently are is critical to self actualization, how am I going to show up when it's time for interns who are under my tutelage to be able to progress? Here's how I've made sense of it. You play by the rules so that they can't use the rules as your disqualifier. Because it's already, listen, my interns got the best project. They can compete with anybody in terms of how that brain works. But don't let these people and their biases about what you are or aren't be the thing that keeps you out the door. And if I, as a business owner, can't make that determination, why'd I even start a business? If I can't have that conversation, if I can't develop people in that way, why'd I start a business? That's the question I have to ask myself. I hope we're not in the fourth quarter of the life cycle of this here United States of America, and that our birthday ain't nothing like what the human birthday represents. Because the more birthdays we have as humans, the closer we are to our own demise. But we are definitely divided. I'm not going to say we've never been this divided before, because we have been. We went to an all-out civil war. And I don't know if we can avoid it the way we love to just be ignorant about topics and avoid talking about the truth of the matter and don't want to read or learn nothing. So much so that we will ban the things that will help you learn. Mm-mm. I don't know. But if you know, tell me. I ain't got nothing else to say about it today. It's filter free Friday, y'all. We got work to do.